Yeah, so we're going to get started now with the presentation. It's US immigration options for athletes, navigating the path to success. So this webinar, we're going to talk about the options that are available for athletes coming to the US. We'll talk about non-immigrant options, O's, P's, and then we'll briefly touch on some of the more permanent options, immigrant options. So EB1As, EB2s, and EB3s. Okay. So again, this presentation, it's general information purposes only. It's not specific legal advice. You can read the disclaimer here. And, if anybody has any follow-up questions, you can reach out to us, get in touch with us in our office. Okay, here's a little bit about me. I am one of the partners of the McEntee Law Group. I'm a licensed US attorney. I'm licensed out of California, as well as being a solicitor, qualified solicitor in Ireland, England, and Wales. I've been in the US since 2014, and I head up the sports and entertainment department within our immigration law firm at McEntee Law Group. And I work with various professional sports leagues, clubs, players, coaches, and other kind of support staffs in non-immigrant and immigrant visa options. I also advise a lot of musicians and entertainers on their non-immigrant and immigrant options. Okay. So here's a brief overview of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some non-immigrant visa options for athletes, some immigrant visa options for athletes, the application process and timeline, some key considerations, some challenges and common issues, and then we have some time, hopefully, for some questions and comments at the very end. Okay, so non-immigrant visa options, kind of a very brief overview. The main options available to athletes coming to the main ones that I'm going to focus on are P1A. So for either like professional athletes or internationally recognized athletes, the O1A visa, that's for athletes of extraordinary ability. And then P1S and O2 visas. This is for essential personnel that are an integral part of the performance of the primary beneficiary. So we'll touch on them too. Okay. And then the immigrant options. We'll briefly talk about these, and I'll probably do another presentation that will go into more detail on the long-term options available. So EB1A, it is athletes of extraordinary ability. We've got the EB2, which is athletes of exceptional ability, and then EB3, skilled workers. Okay, so P1A visa. Let's talk about this. There's a couple of different ways you can qualify for a P1A. One is if you're an individual athlete at an internationally recognized level of performance. So an internationally recognized individual athlete. Internationally recognized, if you're part of a group or team at an internationally recognized level of performance. There's professional athletes, and also an athlete or a coach as part of a team or franchise that is located in the United States and a member of a foreign league or association. They're the main ones. There are some other ones, but these are what I'm going to be kind of focusing on. Okay, so let's look at an internationally recognized athlete. What's that mean, kind of? So in order to qualify as for a P1A as an internationally recognized athlete, you must be coming to the US to participate in a specific athletic competition in a sport which you are internationally recognized. So what does internationally recognized mean? So internationally recognized is a high level of achievement in a sport demonstrated by a degree of skill and recognition substantially above that ordinarily encountered. So you have a degree of skill and recognition substantially above that ordinarily encountered, and your achievement must be renowned, leading, or well known in more than one country. So you're known in more than one country. Okay, so that's what international recognition is. And then also the competition you're going to compete in must have a distinguished reputation and be at an internationally recognized level of performance, such that it requires the participation of internationally recognized athletes. Okay, so that's kind of what an internationally recognized athlete is. Okay, so part of an internationally recognized group or team. Again, you must be coming to the US to participate in a competition, and athletic competition with a team that has achieved international recognition in the sport. And the competition that you're participating in must have a distinguished reputation and be at an internationally recognized level of performance, such that it requires the participation of an internationally recognized athletic team. Okay. So that's internationally recognized group or team. The next one, professional athlete. So we do a lot of these here. So in order to qualify for a P1A professional athlete, you must show that you're coming to the United States to be employed as an athlete by a team that is a member of an association of 6 or more professional sports teams. So you need to have, it's in a league with 6 or more, or an association with 6 or more professional sports teams, whose total combined annual revenues exceed 10 million per year. So 6 or more teams with combined annual revenues of 10 million or more per year. And then the association or league must govern the conduct of its members and regulate the contests and exhibition in which its members regularly engage. So that's what it is for a professional athlete. You're going to be employed by, a team that is a member of an association or league of 6 or more professional teams with combined annual revenues in excess of 10 million, and that the league or the association governs the conduct of its members and regulates contests. Okay. Also, any minor league is an affiliate with such a professional sports association. So any minor league team that's affiliated to one of these professional leagues as well, you can also qualify for a P1A professional athlete if you're going to be employed by one of those affiliate teams. Okay. We'll go through the next one. An athlete or a coach is part of a team or a franchise that is located in the US and a member of a foreign league association. Again, so you're coming to the US to perform as an athlete or a coach as part of a team or a franchise that is located in the US and a member of a foreign league. And then the foreign league must meet the following requirements. The league or association must consist of 15 or more amateur sports teams. Participation in the league must make players temporarily or permanently ineligible under national NCAA rules to earn a scholarship in the sport at a US college or university, or participate in the sport at a US college or university. Okay. Also, the league or association must be the highest level of amateur performance of that sport in the relevant foreign country, and a significant number of individuals who play in the league or association are drafted by a major league sports or a minor league affiliate. Okay. So let's go back to internationally recognized athletes. How do you show that you, what evidence do you submit to show that you are internationally recognized, that you qualify for this? Okay, so what we do is you want to submit a copy of your contract with a major US sports league or team, or individual sports commensurate with. So you want to submit a contract. If the contract is normally utilized in the sport, you want to have evidence of your contract with that team. And then also you want to have documentation of at least 2 of the following. So evidence of having participated to a significant extent in a prior season with a major United States sports league. So if you played in a major league previously, you would include evidence of that performance, of being involved in that season with a major league team. League or team. Okay, so that's one thing you can show. Another one is evidence of having participated in an international competition with a national team. So if you're playing football or soccer or rugby, if you represented your country and you've participated in like a World Cup or a Junior World Cup or something like that, or you've a European Championships, something like that, you'd include evidence of that. Okay, that's number 2. The next one. Evidence of having participated to a significant extent in a prior season for a US college or university, an intercollegiate competition. So if you've done that, if you've attended university in the US and you have participated in NCAA or something like that, then we would include evidence of that. So that's the 3rd one. The 4th one is a written statement from an official of the governing body of the sport, detailing how you or your team is internationally recognized. So depending on what sports you're in, you would get a letter from somebody in the government body talking about you or your team and talking about how you are internationally recognized. They talk about your achievements and so forth. So that's another one. Next criteria is written statement from members of the sports media or a recognized expert in the sport, detailing, again, how you or your team are internationally recognized. So if there's press coverage of you in various media, we would include that. Also, you could get some sports expert to provide a statement about you, about your achievements and how you're internationally recognized in your sport. Okay, another one is evidence that you or your team is ranked if the sport that you're competing in has international ranking systems. So, you could, again, if you're looking at rugby or something like that, or football, you would look at maybe the FIFA rankings or World Rugby rankings and look at your team, look at the ranking there, and you could include that. And then there's also, the last one then is evidence if you or your team have received a significant honour or award in the field. So, if you have won a club award, like a team award, or if you actually won individual awards, if you were a player of the season, or, like best back or best forward. So individual awards and team awards as well. So the ones we use kind of, these are all, I mean, it just depends on what your circumstances are. But typically you're going to have, it really just depends. We've used all of these criteria. It just depends on kind of what evidence you have to support. If you were here in the US and you'd been to college here, we would use the, college one. Governing body of sports, if we can get that too. Sports media, if you've got a lot of press coverage about you, we would do that too, and we can get some experts to provide statements. If you've won any awards, we would obviously list that too. So that's kind of, we need to satisfy at least two of these criteria to show you're internationally recognized athlete. Okay, so evidence that you're a professional athlete. Again, there's the three-pronged thing, evidence that you're going to be employed by a team and an association has 6 or more teams in the US. So basically, depending on what league it is, you would look at your league, print out the league, look at the standings. You could print out all of the evidence of all the teams in that league. If you can show there's more than 6, then great. That's how you show that there's more than 6 teams. So you would go to the league's website and print out all of its teams to do that. Okay, then the next one is you want to show that those 6 or more teams have combined revenues of in excess of 10 million per year. So how you do this is, if you have tax returns, if you can have access to those ones to show that they are in excess of 10 million, or if it's like, an established sport and you have media articles that will talk about revenues, talk about valuations and so forth like that, you can look at media articles to include to provide evidence of the revenues in excess of 10 million. So that's the second part. And then the third part is showing that the evidence that the association governs the conduct of its members and regulates the contests and exhibitions in which teams compete. So, for this, you would look at your league rules and your bylaws and so forth. And they typically will set out all of the rules and regulations and, how the league is run and operated and so forth. And that should satisfy that criteria. Okay. So that's that. That's the internationally recognized athlete, and we've talked about now the professional athlete. Okay, so when you're with P1s, there's a requirement for a consultation letter. So you need to get a written consultation from an appropriate labor organization. And, there's a link there that you can look and see if your sport has labor organizations. There could also be, management, or if there's no labor organization, you don't need to obviously submit a consultation letter if there's no recognized labor organization. Sometimes you can use a management group or a peer group, or you can submit an advisory opinion from experts in lieu of that. So that's just to keep in mind. Okay, P1s. How long are P1As valid for? For an individual athlete, it's the time needed to complete the event, the competition or performance, but not to exceed 5 years. So you can get up to 5 years with a P1A individual athlete. And this can be extended in increments of up to 5 years to a total stay of 10 years. If somebody leaves the US, then it can be longer than that. So initially you can get up to 5 years, and then you can be extended for 5 years. You do want to, we'll talk about this later and kind of pitfalls and stuff like that is, if you're looking for a 5-year P1A, you want to have evidence of what you're going to be doing there. So a contract with a 5-year term or so forth. Okay, so what about an internationally recognized athletic group? Again, it's the time needed to complete the event, competition, or performance, not to exceed 1 year. And then this athletic group can be extended in increments of up to 1 year to continue or complete the event or performance. Okay, so individual athletes, professional athletes, you can get it for up to 5 years. And then you can extend it for up to 5 years. A group It's 1 year and can be extended for 1 year. Okay, so let's talk about the O1A. So we've talked about the P1A, internationally recognized athlete, and we've talked about the P1A, professional athlete. Okay, so let's talk about the O1A, extraordinary abilities, athletes of extraordinary ability. Okay, so if you want to qualify for the O1A visa, you need to show that you are extraordinary in your field and you're coming temporarily to the US to continue work in that area of extraordinary ability. Okay, so what is extraordinary? What's the definition of extraordinary ability for athletics, for O1A athletics? It's a level of expertise indicating that you are one of the small percentage who has risen to the very top of your field. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay. And then it's like, okay, so how do you demonstrate that you have extraordinary ability? So you've been nominated or received a major award in the field. So like if you're a rugby player, if you have, won a Rugby World Cup, if you've won like a Heineken Cup or European Champions Cup, so forth like that, if you've won Super Rugby, winning that award would kind of, or in football, if you won a World Cup or a Premiership or like UEFA Champions League, or like in judo, you've won a World Championship, or athletics, if you've won an Olympics or like a World Championship there, a major award. If you've got that major award, kind of, that shows that you're O1 eligible. If not, and a lot of the times we work with O1 athletes that haven't got that major award. There's a list of O1A criteria, alternate criteria. And they're here up on the screen. And, you need to satisfy at least 3 of these. So 3 of these criteria. Don't worry, you don't need to satisfy them all. You just need to satisfy 3. Okay, so I'll run through the O1A criteria. So first one, receipt of a nationally or internationally recognized prizes or awards for excellence in the field of endeavor. Okay, so it's not that major award, so not like maybe not an Olympic medal or a World Cup, but you've won another award that's pretty, it's an award for excellence. So say if you were player of the year for your club, that competes in like a top professional league in your country, and you were player of the tournament, player of the league there, or you won that domestic tournament, then you could maybe use that. That could be evidence of a prize or award for excellence. It demonstrates excellence. Or if you were in a tournament and you were player of the tournament, then we could use that too as well. Okay, so that's the first one. So awards, kind of there. I see a hand up. If anybody just wants to post questions, if you pop them in the Q&A, I'll answer them at the very end, just to make sure that we have enough time to get through everything. That'd be great. Thanks. Okay, so that's the first one, the award. The next one, okay, evidence of your memberships and associations in the field, which require outstanding achievements of its members. Okay, so typically with professional athletes, how we would kind of demonstrate that would be, we would look at clubs you played for. If you're playing for a professional club in a top league in the country you're playing in, we would demonstrate that. We would talk about if it's the rugby union, rugby association, or the football association, or if it's another kind of associate, we would talk about that. And we would demonstrate, look, your level of how you've come all the way up through that system and you're up in competing in the top league. We'd say that we would talk about the recruitment process and how these teams at this level have recruitment teams that they're looking to bring in the extraordinary talented individuals, and they have a whole recruitment department that literally goes through this and analyzes players and only picks outstanding players. If you were selected to represent your country at a national level, again, we would kind of say that there's like a national selection committee that would review all of the eligible players, and they review them and they look at their performances, and they make that determination based on, they pick the most outstanding players to represent the country. So that's one we use a lot as well. Okay, the next one we use quite a bit as well is publish material in professional or major trade publications or other major media about you relating to your work in the field. Okay, so typically what we would do this here, we would look, if you're in like ESPN or Marca or, Sky Sports or Eurosport or, major media, we like to include. If it's print one, we'll use that as well. A lot of the times, more often, we're seeing it's online media. So like the bigger, the better we want to include. So we would, and you want that press that's going to mention you, talk about like a game you played in or a race you ran or like a mixed martial arts fight you were in. and talking about you. So we want to include that. You'll include the date it was published, who published it and what it kind of said about you. And then, you want kind of statistics. You want to show that these are, major media. If it's online circulation numbers, we would kind of you want to provide all of that information as well. The next one, if it applies, sometimes we don't see it a lot with our athletes. Want evidence that the beneficiary's participation on a panel or individually as a judge of the work of others in the same field for which classification is sought. We don't typically use that a lot in our O1 athletes. The next one again is we don't really use as well evidence of your original. We don't use this scientific, scholarly, or business related contributions of major significance in the field. It doesn't really apply for you in the athletic context. The next one again doesn't really apply either. Sometimes we'll use it with, coaches or performance analysis if they've written evidence of authorship of scholarly articles in the field or professional journals or other major media. If you've written white papers on, performance and you've kind of done a study and figured out some new performance method or some way to kind of recuperate after an injury, and if you've done that, then we can use that for as I said, like maybe it's like athletic trainers or it's performance head of high performance and so forth. Typically we don't see it with athletes. Okay, the next one we use regularly evidence that you've been employed in a critical or essential capacity for organizations and establishments to have a distinguished reputation. So this is, we would talk about, again, if it's like you're playing for a professional team in like a top league, we would talk about that. We would talk about, these are really, we would go on about the team and kind of its measure of its success and talk about, how athletes are one of the most, they're one of the main parts of a team is its athletes, its players. If you're in there and you're a starting player, you're in the match day squads, we would talk about how that you absolutely have a critical role for this organization. Again, also if you're representing your home country, if you've been selected to play at a national level, we would talk about if it's the football, the nation's football association or rugby association, we would talk about that being distinguished. You would look at their success, their statistics playing, and you would say again would talk about going out and representing your country at a national level, being on the field for representing your team. It's absolutely a critical role for your home country's football or rugby association. Or if like you're in the Olympics and you're representing your country, that athletics body, you would talk about all of that and say how you had a critical role or a leading role. If you're a captain of a team, you would talk about that, being a captain, being a leader, and so forth. So that's kind of one we do use a lot. The next one is salary. This is kind of, we don't use this as often, but if you are getting a lot of money, then we would use this salary. Now we need to show that you've got a high salary compared to others in your field. So compared to other, athletes in your sport, you would want to show that your salary is higher compared to others. So, we use it sometimes. So again, this is the O&A criteria. You need to kind of satisfy three. Typically what we see for athletes is awards or prizes for excellence, memberships and associations in a field, press, employed in a critical or essential capacity, and salary sometimes. They're the 5 ones typically that we would use for athletes for the O1. Remember, you only need to get 3 of them. So if you can show 3, you should be able to demonstrate that you have extraordinary ability. Okay, how long is an O1 valid for? O1s can be granted for up to 3 years. You can get an O1 for 3 years. If you're in the US and you want to do an extension, you can only extend it for 1 year. If you want to apply for a new O1, say you get a new contract or, something's changed, it's a different O1, a new employer or so forth, then you can get another 3 years and you can kind of keep renewing in 3-year increments. But remember, 3 year for a new one, extensions for O1 is only 1 year. Okay. Essential support personnel. Okay, so, athletes are able to bring over essential support personnel. So that's true for P1As and also O1A athletes too. Okay, so P essential support. This is, you're eligible to apply for a P1S if you are an individual who is an integral part of the performance of the P athlete, and you perform support services which can't be readily performed by a US worker. Example of this would be coaches, performance analysis, scouts, nutritionists, team managers maybe, perhaps. Yes, that's kind of P1S essential support. Limitations. If it's an internationally recognized athlete, you know, and you're just competing, say, as like a mixed martial artist or a track and field athlete or like a judo or something like that, the P1S, they're only able to provide those essential support person to that primary P1A. So it means you can't work independently of that P1A athlete. If you're employed by like a major league team, and it's a little bit different. You can, you know, the P1S will provide essential support to the P1A athletes on that team, and they can also work with the rest of the players on that team. So there's a little bit more flexibility, but you know, you essentially are P1Ss are connected to P1A athletes. You can't have a P1S without a P1A. Okay. How long can you get a P1S for? Okay, so a new P1S is valid for 1 year. You know, once you get your 1 year, if you're in the US and you want to extend it, you can extend it for a period of 5 years, for a total period not exceeding 10 years. One thing to remember as well, as the P1S is connected to the P1A, if you come in, you get your 1 year P1S, you come in, you're looking to extend it, you're only going to be able to extend it for whatever length the P1A is valid for, because it's connected to it. You won't be able to get more than that. Okay. O2 visa, essential. Okay, so O2 visa, it's kind of the equivalent of the P1S, but it's for O1s. Okay, so in order to qualify the O2 visa, you must show that you're an integral part of the O1A visa holder's performance, and you have critical skills and experience with the O1 visa holder that are not of a general nature and cannot be readily performed by a US worker. Example of O2 essential support personnel could include maybe a coach, a nutrition, performance analyst maybe. Okay, how long are O2 essential support visas valid for? Typically, these will be issued for the same amount of time as the primary O1, so they'll match that. It'll be the same duration as that. Okay. All right, so that's kind of gone through the non-immigrant ones. Going to look now at the immigrant options, so the green card equivalent, the permanent options available. So EB1A, extraordinary ability. This is kind of like the permanent resident, the green card equivalent of the O1A, extraordinary ability visa. Okay, extraordinary ability. So extraordinary ability in athletics, which is you need to qualify for this. You need to demonstrate extraordinary ability in athletics, which has been demonstrated by sustained national or international acclaim, and whose achievements have been recognized in the field through extensive documentation. You're seeking to enter the United States to continue work in your area of extraordinary ability. And also, your entry into the United States will benefit the United States. It will substantially benefit the United States in the future. Okay, so how do we demonstrate extraordinary ability? Okay, so again, there's kind of like, if you have that one-time major achievement, major internationally recognized award, if you've won a World Cup, if you're an Olympic champion, if you're a world champion, you know, if you're a cyclist, you've won the Tour de France. You know, one of these major awards, winning that major award shows that you have demonstrates extraordinary ability. If you don't have that major award, kind of like with the O1 again, it's fine. You can still apply. You just need to satisfy at least 3 of the 10 criteria below, or comparable evidence if the criteria don't readily apply. Again, so we'll kind of run, it's similar criteria. Receipt of lesser nationally or internationally recognized prizes or awards for excellence. So again, as we said, you know, that it's an award that you receive that's pretty prestigious, but doesn't rise to that major award. We can look at that. We'll include evidence of that. Again, the second one, which we use a lot for athletes, is memberships and association which demand outstanding achievement of its members. Again, we would talk about that. Look at the clubs you played. If you're playing in a top professional league, if you're playing in the Premiership, we're going to say, look, absolutely, you know, to advance up through the English Football Association, through their leagues and get to the top league, you need to demonstrate extraordinary ability. These are the best players, like, you know, best players being selected to play here. If it's in France, in like, you know, League One, or it's in La Liga in Spain, or, you know, MLS here, you know, we're going to talk about that as well. Being the top league in the United States, top of the system, they're picking the best players available. So they have recruitment teams that are literally looking at the best athletes, trying to bring in the best athletes, outstanding athletes in. We would talk about all of that and show that. If you're playing for your national team, again, we would talk about that, saying there's like literally there's a national selection committee that are looking at all of the players available and picking the best players. So that's kind of how you would show the memberships and associations. Third one, again, published material about you. Again, talked about that. if you have press, if you're ESPN, Marca, major rugby press, athletics press, like if it's in mixed martial arts or BJJ, online publications that are really reputable, talking about you, talking about your trade, that's what you want. You want to be including that, and then you provide circulation numbers of the press, of the different kind of press that we're featuring, to show that it's major. Okay, again, asked to judge the work of others. Typically, we don't use this. Evidence of your original scientific, scholarly, artistic, athletic, or business-related contribution of major significance in the field. We can sometimes use this. I mean, it's a tough. We don't typically use this, but if you're a trainer, if you're a golf coach, and you've devised this novel swing that is completely, we can link it to this as something new in the sport that you've kind of done, you've created. If it's a new method, then we can maybe look at doing that. But it's not one we typically use a lot. Again, authorship of scholarly articles. If you are a coach, or a nutritionist, or like a head of high performance, and you've written white papers on a study of how bananas help in certain things, or certain foods are going to help with the recuperation from an injury, or certain exercises are going to help, or if you've written like a white paper, then we can include that. If you have evidence of that, we would include it. Evidence your work being displayed at artistic exhibitions or showcases. We don't really use this for our athletes, professional sports. The next one, evidence of performance in leading or critical role in distinguished organizations. We would use this. This is kind of what we talk about, similar with the L1. Talk about, your role with your teams you're playing, or with your, if you're, represent your country, or, starting player in a football team or a rugby team. We would talk about all of that, and we would talk about the clubs that you're playing for and how they're distinguished. Or if you're playing for your national team, we would talk about that as well. The next one, salary. Again, if you're making a high salary compared to others in the field, we could look at this one. And then the last one we kind of don't use this really for sports either. Okay, so that's the kind of the list. That's the criteria. We need to satisfy 3. Typically what we'll use for EB1A is lesser nationally or internationally recognized prizes or awards, memberships and associations which demand outstanding achievement, press, leading a critical role with distinguished organizations, and a high salary. They're kind of the 5 we would look at for EB1As. Okay. One thing to note about EB1A, which can be, advantageous, is there doesn't have to be a job offer for an EB1A. So there doesn't have to be a US petitioner offering you a job to file an EB1A. So therefore, you're able to self-petition. What this means is you don't need a US petitioner. You can file this on your own. You can self-petition for an EB1A, which is great. It can give people a lot of flexibility. You do need to show that you intend to work in your area of expertise, and we want to kind of, typically how you would do that is, if you do have a contract to work or a letter of intent or something like that, letters of intent evidencing that you're going to be working in your field of extraordinary ability. And you also need to show that your work will substantially benefit the US in the future. So if this is like, if you're talking about footballers or rugby players or athletes, sports is so important in America. It's such a part of the fabric of society. It's a huge country for sports. If you're coming in and, maybe if it's kind of if it's football or rugby, you're coming in, you're a highly skilled rugby player, you're going to come in, you're going to improve the level of play potentially of your team. You're going to you're just going to make the sport better, and you're going to all the fans are going to just benefit from that. And that's kind of how an argument you would kind of show that. Okay, next one, EB2, exceptional ability. This is kind of like extraordinary ability, but it's exceptional ability. Okay. So what we need to show is that you have exceptional ability in the arts. What we focus here is on the arts. Exceptional ability in the arts. You'll substantially benefit the economy, cultural or educational interest, or welfare of the United States in the future. And you need to have a job offer for an EB2. You need to have a job offer, so there needs to be a US petitioner there. National interest waivers, you can self-petition, but we're not going to get into that here. We're just looking at EB2 exceptional ability. Okay, so exceptional ability is defined as a degree of expertise significantly above that ordinarily encountered in the arts, in your field. Okay, so a degree of expertise significantly above that ordinarily encountered. So that's what you need to show. That's the level that you need to show. Okay, what else to know about the EB2? You do need to have a job offer and you need a US petitioner. You can self-petition with the EB2 exceptional ability. You can with a national interest waiver, but again, not getting into that. Okay, what else? Something else you need to know with the EB2, which is a bit different. EB2 exceptional ability, which is different from the EB1A extraordinary ability. You need to have a permanent labour certification from the Department of Labour. You got to file this directly with the Department of Labour. If you are a professional athlete, if you can show that you're coming to be employed by a team that qualifies in a professional association and you can meet that, then you can use special handling procedure for professional athletes. This greatly speeds up the labour certification process. Something to know. Okay, so how do you demonstrate exceptional ability? Okay, you need to meet at least 3 of the following 6 types of evidence. Okay. Official record showing you have a degree, diploma, certificate, or similar award from college, university, school, or other institution. We don't use this for sports generally. Evidence from your current or former employer showing that you have at least 10 years full-time experience in the occupation which you're being sought. So if you have a career, you've 10 years experience as a professional, as an athlete, then we can look at that. The next one we don't typically use. Evidence that you have commanded a salary or other remuneration for services that demonstrates exceptional ability. Okay, so this isn't, you don't have to show that you have a high salary compared to others in the field. We just need to show that you are commanded a salary that, is high enough that would demonstrate exceptional ability. So, if you're, you want to show that, if you're getting paid well, getting paid really well, then, we can use that. You want to be kind of shown, depending if there's there's reports on salaries, we could maybe look at that. But this is one we can use if the salary's there, and we generally that's one of the criteria we would look at when looking at exceptional ability. Okay, evidence of memberships in professional associations. Again, this is leagues, professional rugby unions, football unions, or track and field associations and so forth. We would look at that, of your professional associations. Okay, and then we have evidence of recognition for achievements and significant contributions to the industry by peers, government entities, professional or business organizations. Okay, so this one is, we would have letters from experts talking about it. If there's press coverage about you, if there's media coverage about you as well, we would use all of that. So again, we need to show you satisfy 3 of this. So typically, maybe you have 10 years experience, high salary, one we would use, memberships in professional associations, and recognition for achievements and significant contributions. We include them. That's what we look at for the EB2. Okay, and then for the EB3 skilled worker, this is sometimes you can use as well. You must demonstrate that you possess at least 2 years of job experience, education, or training that meets the job requirements specified in the labour certification. Relevant post-secondary education may be considered as training. You must be performing work for which qualified workers are not available in the US. Labour certification is required. Professional athletes, again, if you're a professional athlete and you're going to be playing for a team in a major league or so forth, you can use special handling procedure. Here, you do need to have a full-time job offer, no self-petitioning option with EB3. So you do have to have a US petitioner, and you need to get permanent labour certification from the Department of Labour. Okay, so that's a brief overview of permanent options. Okay, so what's involved in preparing performance-based petition? For almost all of these, everything that we've discussed, with the bar the EB1A option, you need to have a US petitioner who's going to file the case on your behalf. With O's and P's, sometimes we can use agent petitioners set up for the athlete cases. So that's where the petitioner is not your employer. So sometimes you have that set up. So, there's different types of agency petitioner relationships. You have agent petitioner performing the function of employer. So that's maybe you have a manager who's not your employer, but they're going to file it as your agent, and they're kind of taking care of stuff like that. They can file it as performing the function of employer. Agent petitioner for multiple employers. If you're going to be coming in, you're going to be working for multiple different organizations, then maybe you can have an agent, someone who will agree to file the case on behalf of all of these different employers. Now, you do need to identify the employers, and you need to get authorization for them. You need to submit that with your case. Agent petitioner for a foreign employer. You have a foreign employer and you're coming in, and maybe you can use that. We use this. This works well more in the music context. We use it, not much in the sports. Basically, the whole agent petitioner is going to provide a little bit more flexibility. Also sports and athletes. They don't generally. Some of them aren't typical employer-employee industries, so that's why there's P's and O's have the ability to have an agent petitioner to give a little bit more flexibility. Okay. What are kind of some issues that we kind of run into? Okay. So speculative employment sometimes. Basically, this is sometimes, we've seen trends where, you could ask for a certain amount of time on your P1. You can get up to 5 years for a P1A, individual athlete. If you try to get 5 years and you only have a contract for 2 years, it's likely what we've seen is that USC will push back, or you don't provide any evidence of what you're going to be doing. You've shown that you're internationally recognized, but you don't provide any evidence of what you're going to be doing in the US. USCS, we'll see that they push back and they'll say, we want evidence of what you're going to be doing. Sometimes you'll have a contract that has like a guaranteed term and an option term, and if you try and request the guaranteed term plus the option term, they can push back and say that the option isn't guaranteed, and sometimes you'll only get the guaranteed term. So how do you kind of avoid that whole speculative employment? What we want to do is, typically, if you're in a league, we will include evidence of that league, the schedule. Some leagues don't have more than a lot of things will only have one season planned out. We've seen USCS push back on that as well, saying we don't have 3 years worth of schedules. You just say, look, it's not standard. Here's this year's one that's being published. Next year's isn't available, or the year afterwards, but it's going to substantially repeat that. So you'd have your kind of your schedule, your league schedule for you, or your if you're with a team, or if you're an individual athlete. We'd have if it's BJJ in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we would look at the different competitions you're going to be competing in, or athletics, we'd look at your track and field meets that are going to be coming, and we would say that these are only published for a year. And they will substantially repeat it. If you have any if you're playing with a team, if you've got a contract with the league or the club, you definitely include that. That'll have a term in it. If you have any endorsement deals, if you have any sponsors in there as well, you could include evidence of that, showing what the term of that is. Also, evidence of any ancillary duties as a professional athlete, promotional activities and stuff like that. We would include evidence of that. So you want to kind of include as much evidence as you can of what you're going to be doing in the US. Okay, again, what we touched on earlier, you need to get a consultation letter for P's and O's. And then any kind of labor for the EB2s and stuff, EB3s, you want to have a letter of no objection from your league, or if there's a labor organization, not the league, from an appropriate labor or management organization. So you need this. So you want to file this with your O's and P's. You need to request that prior to submitting your case, generally speaking. Okay, so we'll go over, we've kind of touched on this before. We'll just touch on it again. Major award, Rugby World Cup, Champions League, BJJ World Champion, Olympic medal, or, evidence of awards in your sport, winning league titles, cups, individual awards, evidence of memberships in top professional leagues, playing for your country, evidence of press coverage, ESPN, Marca, Eurosport, etc., evidence of leading or critical role with distinguished clubs, stats, expert letters confirming how you were leading or critical role, evidence that you have or will receive a high salary compared to others. Okay, so evidence for the P1A, we talked about that, what you need. If you're coming, list all the teams shown as more than 6 teams, evidence of more than combined annual revenues in excess of 10 million, news articles confirming revenues, tax revenues, and then your league's bylaws, rules and bylaws showing that they do govern conduct, and and then evidence that the competition has a distinguished level of competition. Okay. Internationally recognised athlete, what we're going to include: press, letters from the governing body to sport stating you're internationally recognised, prizes your team have received, evidence of playing a significant role in prior major league season. We would look at your stats and evidence of being on the roster of a major league team. Expert letters, evidence competing in an international tournament, evidence of your team's ranking in the sport. So that's kind of the internationally recognized athlete. Then you also want to show that what you're coming in to compete in is you're going to be competing in an event or competition that requires internationally recognized athletes. We would look at, you talk about that, first off, that internationally athletes are competing there. Also, you look at like the media coverage it gets. If there's sponsorship involved, we'd list all the other internationally recognized athletes competing there and so forth, just to show that it's distinguished. Okay, so evidence for essential support. You need to show how you're an integral part of the primary beneficiary's performance. Job description, discuss your prior experience working with the beneficiary, providing like your start dates and so forth, and your description of what you've been doing. Major league teams for P1S. You show that you are qualified to provide essential support to its P1 athletes. You don't necessarily need to show prior experience with that P1A athlete. Okay, what's the timeline for the process? O's and P's, non-immigrants are going to be shorter. The immigrant petitions are much longer. And depending if it's EB1A or you need labour certification. So O's and P's, assuming we have everything we need, all of the required documents, signed forms and agreements and so forth, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks per case. And then depending on how you file. If you file with expedited processing, you could have, a decision within 2 weeks. I would say, 3 to 6 months for P's and O's. Could be faster, depending. Immigrant petitions much longer. You're looking at, I would say, 6+ months, 6 to 12 months. Okay. Adjudication process, again, regular will just depend on the processing times. It varies depending on workload. Premium processing, you pay an expedited fee. You have a better timeline, 15 calendar days to get some sort of update. You could get an approval or a request for evidence. If it's a request for evidence, you need to respond to that. Then once you do, that 15-day starts again at day 0. Calendar days, that is, as well. Okay, as we said, premium is much quicker. Regular, it's cheaper, but it's more uncertainty. You don't really know. So then once your case is approved, what kind of happens? Then you go through, if it's O's and P's, you got to go through consular processing. You need to kind of get your get your visa stamp and your passport. That takes time, depends on what the capacity of the embassy is. I would say if you're looking to come to the US, 6 months out, you want to be starting the process more if you can, if possible. But anything less than 6 months is going to be really rushed. Okay, common challenges. Finding a petitioner. If you haven't been in the US before, you haven't played here, you haven't competed here, it might be hard to find a US petitioner. And for the majority of these, if you don't have a US petitioner, you can't file a case. Again, itineraries and contracts. This is what we had talked about again. Contracts, if you're trying to get a contract with a guaranteed term plus an option term, sometimes they'll push back on that. You might only get the guaranteed term. USCS might want to see a schedule for 3 years if you're looking for 3 years. And a lot of sports don't have schedules for 3 years. They just have the current season. They'll announce it just before the season starts, so you don't have that. So sometimes they push back on that. Timing, it says artists, you should say athletes. Timing is a big thing, especially with athletes. Things move fast. You get signed, you get traded, happens really quick. A lot of it sometimes can be out of your control. But timing is a big one that we run into, just not having enough time. And then more recently, what we've seen with social media and stuff like that is if you're an athlete and you're also an influencer and you're doing more than just coming in and competing as an athlete, you want to make sure that you're picking the right visa, that it's set up the right way. You want to be like, are you an influencer athlete? You want to show how you're extraordinary as an influencer and also as an athlete. So you want to make sure that that's set up and that you're allowed to you get the flexibility and you're authorized to do everything that you want to do in the US. But that would be discussing with your attorney and making sure that everything makes sense there. Okay, questions. I have one here I see is, what if you are not a world champion and you play college rugby in your home country? Okay, you don't have to be a world champion to apply for something, but as I said, you need to go through those criteria. The college, playing at college level, that's it specifically relates to like a US college. So, you would need to meet the criteria. If you're looking for a P1A, you need to satisfy those criteria. 2 of those criteria for internationally recognized, or if you're coming to play as a professional athlete, if the league and the club meets that, then you have that contract with that team, then you can just demonstrate that you qualify as a professional athlete. You don't need them to be a world champion. For the O1, again, you don't need to have that major award. You just need to satisfy 3 of the criteria. So you need to go through them and make sure you satisfy them. But you don't need to be a world champion to qualify. It helps, obviously, but you don't need to. Another one is it a must to have played internationally for your country? No, it's not a must. It helps again. It's great to have it, but absolutely not. You don't need to play. You don't need to represent your country at an international level. Again, need to make sure you're satisfying those criteria. Once you do, then if you don't have evidence of playing for your country at a national level, then that's okay, as long as you can satisfy the other criteria. Okay, so here's all of our links to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and so forth. I hope this has been helpful. Obviously we ran through things very, very quickly. We obviously ran through things very quickly. It's a lot of ground to cover, when you're looking at non-immigrant and immigrant options. But essentially, if you're looking to come to the US, make sure you're talking to an immigration lawyer who's experienced with performance visas. Not everyone does this. Make sure yourself you give enough time, and I hope that kind of this has been helpful to you.